Hi guys, so I am currently editing the video that you are about to see. I just got an email from my manager that the website is officially live for pre-signups. If you missed the video where I was talking about the fact that I'm releasing merch, I am releasing merch, and I will link the video where I talk about it in the description where I go over all the different options that I have. But in that video, I talked about the fact that if you've signed up on my website early, that you would receive early access to the launch of my merch. The official release date the official launch date is December 13th at 12 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. But if you sign up early on my website, I will put the name of the website right here. It's just meganmccullom.com, and I'll also link it in the description. But if you sign up early, you will have access at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So that is 7 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, which is my time. So yeah, 2 hours early if you sign up early. So click the link for my website and sign up early if you so please. But yeah, I just wanted to talk about it really fast in the intro because I would have talked about it in this video, but I didn't know at the time, so that's why I didn't talk about it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video that you're about to see. The editing is taking for fucking ever, so yeah, I hope you guys like it. Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. So for today's mukbang, I am super excited as always because the main reason why I'm super excited is because I found these brownies on Instagram I think over a year ago, maybe exactly a year ago, and I wanted to try them ever since, but it just seemed like so extra to ship brownies to myself, like to buy them online and then ship them to myself. But I was recently perusing, I'll post the Instagram in the description of where I bought them from. They're called Cleveland Brownie Company, I think. And I was recently perusing their Instagram page again, and I was like, okay, I need to try those. So I just bought their variety pack. I'm gonna also post the descriptions of all the brownies in the description as well because it's a lot. Like if I was to read off each brownie and what's inside of it, and how they made it, it would take me probably 5 minutes. So I'm just gonna put the descriptions of the brownies in the actual description of this video. And then I also decided that I really wanna have fettuccine Alfredo because it's been a hot minute since I've had some fettuccine Alfredo, and it's one of my favorite foods. I think it's actually been like 9 months or so, maybe 10 months since I've had it on my channel. So we're long overdue for a fettuccine Alfredo mukbang. If some weirdos out there don't like pasta, I will try to mix it up in my future mukbangs because I think my last 3 I've had pasta. But you know, it's just what I've been craving. So yeah. So anyways, before I get to talking, I'm gonna take my first bite because I'm very, very hungry. Fettuccine Alfredo is just like so good. I can't. I always forget how good it is until I have a bite of it, and then I'm like, it's so much better than I remember. Yum. So anyways, for today's mukbang, I'm going to talk about the Jeffrey Epstein conspiracy, or the conspiracies surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's death. Specifically, the idea that he didn't actually commit suicide, but he was murdered in jail. And if you don't know anything about Jeffrey Epstein, I'm gonna go over like a very brief overview, just because I feel like at this point, I would think like at least 95% of people would know about him or have heard something about him. So I'm just gonna do like a brief overview. I'm gonna get more into the nitty-gritty of his actual suicide and just the things in the case that don't really add up and are making, I think it's like 3 out of every 4 Americans think that he was murdered instead of committed suicide. So it's like a pretty huge conspiracy theory. So I'm just gonna get into basically why it's a conspiracy theory and why I personally also believe that he was murdered. I don't believe he committed suicide. Dude. And I got this fettuccine from Buca Di Beppo. So if you don't know who Jeffrey Epstein is, basically he is a pretty much self-made billionaire. It's unknown how he has technically acquired his wealth, but he is thought to be a billionaire. He spent most of his life working in finance, like on Wall Street, like that type of finance. And he was 66 at the time of his death. He died at the Manhattan Correctional Facility in, obviously, New York, New York. So the official ruling on his death by the New York Medical Examiner's Office was that he committed suicide by hanging himself in his jail cell. So they believed that he had hung himself with, I guess, his bed sheet, and that's how they think that he killed himself. But a lot of people think that he was murdered because he was also, along with being a billionaire financier type person, he was also on the side a pimp slash pedophile slash sex trafficker. And that's also how a lot of people think that he actually made his money, was from sex trafficking and being a pimp. And it's not the type of pimp you generally think of when you think of a pimp, where it's prostitutes working on a corner. He would traffic young girls to very, very, very influential, wealthy, famous men. And so a lot of people think that he was murdered because he had so much dirt on these influential and famous people that they would rather see him dead than have it get out in his trial. So just to give a brief example of the famous people that he ran in circles with and rubbed elbows with, one of his first clients when he got into finance was Leslie Wexner, who is the owner of Victoria's Secret and also Bath and Body Works, who is a billionaire. And just to kind of give you an idea of the clients Epstein had, I think he said that it cost $1 billion just to become his client. Like that was like the buy-in price. So it's like he was working with the top of the top of the top of the top 1% of people in America. He was a well-known associate of President Clinton, Bill Clinton. There are videos and pictures of him hanging out with President Trump. He has had dinner parties at his house with some of the attendees being Katie Couric, George Stephanopoulos. He knew Bill Gates. So he was just very well accepted in these circles. He was one of them. He was part of the big club. And so that's why there's so much interest surrounding his death, is because he would be the one person that would have the dirt on everyone, and now he's dead. So like, I'm pretty sure flight records indicate that Bill Clinton was on his, so Jeffrey Epstein had a plane called the Lolita Express, which, disgusting because he was trafficking underage girls, but he called it the Lolita Express. And I guess Bill Clinton, according to flight records, flew on that plane 27 times. And then Bill Clinton's press secretary released a statement that he had only been on the plane 4 times. No, the flight records have his name signed 27 times. And I guess some of the times that Bill Clinton was on the plane, he didn't even have his Secret Service with him. So he was good friends with this dude. Good friends with this dude. Donald Trump is quoted as saying that Epstein is a really fun guy who loves beautiful women just as much as he does. And at the end, he makes a comment about how most of those girls are very young. So to the extent, I'm not trying to claim that Bill Clinton or President Trump was a part of this sex trafficking thing. I'm just saying that they were good friends. Because this was the early 2000s, and that was like at the height of his sex trafficking, was the early 2000s. And they were good friends with him at this point. So I'm just saying, just saying. So the way that Epstein operated was he would typically have a wingwoman of some sort. Sometimes they would be actual prostitutes, and then oftentimes it was this woman named Ghislaine Maxwell. And what he would do is basically have these women befriend these younger girls who would be anywhere aged 12 to 17, always under 18, and he would have them befriend them and then have them take them to his private residence, where he would first ask them for a massage, and then midway through the massage or before the massage would sexually molest them or rape them. And he would sometimes pay them $300, sometimes $100, sometimes $1,000. That was pretty much his MO, was having a woman lure them in by thinking that they could trust this woman, and then the woman would eventually lead these young girls to his residence, where he would take advantage of them, basically. So in 2006, he was actually arrested and charged with, well, he was supposed to obviously be charged with sex trafficking minors, because one of the moms of a girl who he had paid for sex, essentially, reported it to the police. And so the police eventually and the FBI together accumulated, I think, 50 plus cases of women who he had sexually assaulted who were minors. Or not women he had sexually assaulted, sorry, girls he had sexually assaulted. And because of the amount of money and power he had, he was able to cut a deal where he pleaded guilty to prostitution charges. Technically, it was just soliciting prostitution. So because of the amount of money and wealth and the lawyers he had, they were able to get him this special deal where he only spent, I think, a year in jail, and then about 3 months in, he was able to leave for up to 12 hours a day. He was able to leave jail for up to 12 hours a day for work purposes. So he could just go work wherever. He was able to walk on the beach for exercise. Like, it was just the easiest jail sentence you could ever imagine. And part of the agreement with his plea deal, or whatever you want to call it, was that none of his co-conspirators could be charged, which I guess, I don't really know anything about the legal system, but I guess that's pretty unheard of, to have a clause or whatever you want to call it. I don't even know. Like I said, I don't know legal terminology. But there was a part of the agreement that said that his co-conspirators could never be charged, which to me just leads me to believe that because he had all these fancy lawyers and all this money, that they also wanted to protect the super wealthy and powerful friends that he had. So that's just like red flag number one. First off, he's able to only serve a year in jail, probably because his wealthy friends were able to get him off. And also the fact that there was like a clause in the agreement that said that none of his co-conspirators who knew about what he was doing could be charged, which is still in effect today. They tried to get this judge to rule it out, and basically the judge was like, no, because it was a part of what the court decided then, so it stands now. So it's still a part of his case, is that his co-conspirators can't be charged. Bro, that is so thick and warm because I microwaved them. Oh my gosh. I think that their bio on Instagram says that, I think these are a ½ pound each. Like they're ½ pound brownies. Which is crazy. So since I tried this one, next I think I'm just already gonna jump into another one. I just wanna try them all now. But since then, multiple women have come forward publicly and talked about the abuse they suffered at the hands of Jeffrey Epstein, especially after his arrest in July of this past year. So one of the women who has come forward says that she was also raped by Prince Andrew, who is a member of the British royal family. And he has obviously denied it, not very well. He went on BBC and did this horrible interview. It was like the most awkward thing I've ever watched. Nothing he said was believable. Her name is, the woman who accused him, his name is Virginia Roberts. Even though there's a photograph of them together when she was 17 with his arm around her, he claims, he tried to imply that the photo was doctored in some way and wasn't real, even though it's definitely real. Like you can tell that it's real. Oh my gosh. This one was more cooked than this one, but I love undercooked baked goods. Like I like when they're a little bit gooey. And this is gooey, like you can kind of tell right here. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to think of what that tastes like though. It's like white chocolate and something else. I don't even know, but it's so good. It's like, it's just so good. Wow. I like this one better, surprisingly, than the peanut butter chocolate one. Oh my gosh, see, it's like falling apart because it's so like gooey. So yeah, Prince Andrew basically tried to say that the photo was doctored. Virginia Roberts also said that they had danced together at this nightclub and that he was really sweaty. And then he tried to claim, oh God, he tried to claim that I'm not laughing, like it's not really funny, it's disgusting, but it's also like, how dumb are you, dude? It's almost just a testament to how untouchable he probably thinks he is, to where he feels like he can just blatantly lie on BBC and nothing will happen to him. Like he knows he's probably never gonna face any consequences for this, so. But he tried to say that he had a condition where he couldn't sweat because of something to do with his adrenaline, because he was shot. And so somehow being shot makes it so that you can't sweat. Little known fact. If you didn't know, now you know. Like multiple doctors have been like, that's not a thing. Like it's a very rare condition where someone can't sweat. And obviously there's no public reports or anything like that of Prince Andrew suffering from this. So it's like he's lying.
He threw a party to celebrate his release and you were invited as the guest of honor.
Oh, in 2010? That certainly wasn't a party to celebrate his release in December.
You were invited to that dinner as a guest of honor.
Well, I was there, so there was a dinner. I don't think it was quite as you might put it, but yeah, okay, I was there at a dinner, yeah.
One of Epstein's accusers, Virginia Roberts, has made allegations against you. She says she met you in 2001. She says she dined with you, danced with you at Tramp nightclub in London. She went on to have sex with you in a house in Belgravia belonging to Ghislaine Maxwell, your friend. Your response?
I have no recollection of ever meeting this lady.
So yeah, I guess the whole point that I'm trying to get across here is like who he knows and why it's important, like why his suicide is so important. This journalist named James Stewart wrote a piece in the, I think, Washington Post or New York Times. I'm pretty sure it was the Washington Post, but he wrote about how he had secretly met with Epstein. Well, it wasn't a secret meeting, but Epstein asked for any information that he gave the journalist to be off the record and not attributed like with his name. And I guess the journalist is like, well, now that he's dead, I'm just gonna say it. Fuck it. And so the journalist came out and was like, I had a meeting with Epstein last summer, and he says, and I quote, "The overriding impression I took away from our roughly 90-minute conversation was that Mr. Epstein knew an astonishing number of rich, famous, and powerful people and had photos to prove it. He also claimed to know a great deal about these people, some of it potentially damaging or embarrassing, including details about their supposed sexual proclivities and recreational drug use." So my point is that he just had all this information on all these powerful ass people, and they didn't want it to get out, and that's why he's dead, you know? Like, that's why he's dead. I don't really know what other explanation there is, because there's not one. This is legit so good, I can't. So now I'm just gonna jump right into his first supposed suicide attempt. So he was arrested in early July for sex trafficking. It's not clear to me whether it was for charges prior to the 2006 conviction, like if they had new stuff on him, or if they were just finally trying to get him for the stuff that had happened in the early 2000s. I'm not sure, but he was arrested in July of this past year, 2019. And then his first suicide attempt took place on July 23rd. So there's also a lot of interesting information surrounding that first attempt, so I wanted to cover that as well as the circumstances surrounding his actual death. So on July 23rd, he was found in his cell, semi-unconscious, with marks and bruises around his neck. And the craziest thing to me about this is that I guess Epstein blamed it, or he thought that he had been attacked by his cellmate at the time. So why the correctional people thought that it was a suicide attempt, I don't know, because, I mean, granted, maybe he was embarrassed if it didn't work and he wanted to blame it on someone else, but for me, if I was like a correctional officer and an inmate was like, no, I didn't try to kill myself, I think that it was my cellmate, I'd be like, okay, maybe it was your cellmate, maybe I should look into this, you know, but they just ruled it a suicide attempt. To make things even more sketchy, his cellmate, first off, his cellmate is so terrifying looking. Like, I was watching Joe Rogan's podcast about it, and I was laughing because, I don't even remember who Joe Rogan was talking to, but I was cracking up because Joe Rogan was like, that's the caricature of the guy that you don't want to be put in jail with. Like, that's the caricature of that classic, like, cellmate that, like, is out of your nightmares. Like, that's seriously, if I saw this guy in a dark alley, I would just drop dead immediately. I guess his cellmate, well, eventually Epstein was changed cellmate, so he didn't have to room with this guy anymore, or whatever you call it in prison, I don't know. The guy's name is Nicholas Tartaglione, and he is an ex-cop who is in prison awaiting the death penalty for the murder of 4 men in relation to some cocaine drug thing, like a drug deal gone bad, I don't know. But he was found, Nicholas was found with a cell phone, an illegal cell phone, in the cell. Okay, so Epstein has a lot of enemies, right? Epstein thinks that Nicholas Tartaglione was the one behind his first suicide attempt. And then this Tartaglione guy is found with a cell phone that he wasn't supposed to have in his cell. Maybe the cell phone was used to give him some type of order to kill Epstein. Like, you don't know. And the thing that I'm most frustrated about is, it's been how many months? August, September, October, November. 4 months since Epstein's death, and what new information has surfaced? Can you guys tell me any new information that you found out? No, because there hasn't been anything. Like, who the fuck is investigating this? I feel like there has to be some sort of loose ends. Or at least, like, even though he's dead now, and I understand, like, maybe we'll never get to the bottom of whether or not he was killed. Why have there been no arrests or questioning of the people who were involved in this sex trafficking ring? Like, what's the point of living in the greatest security state if it's not secure? So the NSA is watching me through my cell phone, but they can't figure out who Jeffrey Epstein was in cahoots with? I don't believe that for a damn second, okay? I don't. I just don't. But anyways, I'm getting way too political in this video, but anyways, so Epstein was placed on suicide watch following his suicide attempt. I think he was taken off, they have like different stages to suicide watch, so he was taken off the most severe a day later, and then a week later he was like fully removed from it, like, so he was just like back to normal. Which I also guess is not really standard procedure. Like, there's a psychologist, I think, or a therapist who regularly assesses inmates at that specific correctional facility, and they said that that was just not normal procedure. Usually they would be kept on for a longer amount of time just to make sure that you can fully assess whether or not they are suicidal or not. Especially because what's the harm of having him on suicide watch? To me, he is responsible for hurting so many people and destroying so many lives. Like, those young girls will never be able to fully recover from what he did to them and what his friends did to them. And so to me, I would just think that he would be a higher priority, especially also because of the media attention on the case, and because it's like, you almost lost him once, apparently. He almost tried to take his life once. Wouldn't you not want that to happen again? Because A, how poorly that would reflect on the correctional facility, but also the fact that now he's never gonna be held accountable. Like, to me, I would just put him as like the highest priority. Like, you don't want this guy to kill himself. You want him to be alive, at least through the trial, and then maybe after it's like, well, whatever. Like, if he wants to kill himself, that's his prerogative. But it's just frustrating that if he really did kill himself, which I don't think he did, why wasn't there more effort on the correctional facility's part to ensure that the victims were able to see justice? It's just an utter failure, regardless of what happened. Like, it's a complete failure of the Justice Department in general. But I digress from that. So eventually Epstein got a new inmate to room with, or to share a cell with. And I guess that inmate was actually removed the night before his suicide for unknown reasons. Nobody knows why, especially because typically, I guess if an inmate has attempted suicide before, they're like, once again, a higher priority to have a cellmate with them. Just obviously it's harder to commit suicide if someone's in the room with you. So the new inmate, not the Nicholas guy, but he got a new inmate, and that roommate was removed the night before he killed himself for unknown reasons. But then further reasons why the suicide story doesn't really make sense is because I guess apparently Epstein had paid, or was paying, at least 3 other inmates to protect him while he was in prison. So why would you take money out of your own wallet and go through the effort of paying other inmates to ensure your protection if you just plan to kill yourself anyway? Like, that doesn't make any sense. And apparently after his first suicide attempt, he was still meeting with his lawyers to attempt to beat the case. And I guess he was very upbeat about it. Like, he was feeling very positive about the outcome for the case. And his last meeting with his lawyers occurred less than a week before he committed suicide, and they all say that he was in good spirits. So once again, it just doesn't make sense for someone to go through the effort of hiring these lawyers and putting on a front that you're in these good spirits when you're just gonna kill yourself anyways. Like nothing makes sense. So now jumping to his actual death. So his first suicide attempt was on July 24th or 23rd. And then his death, or his successful suicide, was on August 10th. So 18 days later, not even 3 weeks later. So like I already said, New York City's chief medical examiner, I think her name is Barbara Sampson, says that her team ruled that it was a suicide, and they are standing by in their ruling. Like, they're not going to take a second look at the body. They just believe that there's no way they could be wrong. But my whole thing is, it could be one of those things where it reminds me of like old mafia movies where the mob is like, I'm gonna give you an offer you can't refuse. It would often happen in juries where the mob would say, you're going to find the defendant, which would be a mob member, you're gonna find them innocent. And if you don't, we won't ensure the protection of your family, basically meaning we're gonna kill your family or hurt your family. And if you do, you will get cash, big wad of cash. So it's an offer you can't refuse. Basically, you literally can't refuse it. Like, what are you gonna do? Have your family killed? And so a lot of people think that that might be what happened with the medical examiner's office. Maybe they were threatened by higher ups who said, you're gonna find it a suicide, and if you don't, who knows what'll happen. So I don't trust her word, just because there is another forensic pathologist that believes that it was a homicide, which I'll get to in a second. But yeah. So next I'm gonna try the Oreo one. It's so gooey. Wow. It's weird because they don't taste like conventional brownies. I feel like they may be made, because it's like a blondie kind of, like half blondie, half brownie. I feel like maybe they made it blondies so that the flavor could come through better, because if it's chocolate, I'm sure it'd be hard to have like different flavors, because then it ends up just tasting like chocolate, you know? So they don't really taste like brownies. That's why I feel like I'm having a hard time like describing how they taste, because I don't really know what they taste like. I feel like they just taste like blondies, but I don't know if I've ever had a blondie before. So it's like a new flavor to me. That bite with the Oreo though. Anyways, just to give you guys like kind of an idea about how high security this prison was. This prison was the same prison that housed or kept Al Chapo, literally. So a drug kingpin, like the US has been attempting to fight the war on drugs for how long? Like, he would be such an important capture. That's where they chose to house him, or that's where they chose to keep him, because that's how high security it's supposed to be. And so going along with that, a former inmate gave an account of what it's actually like inside there, and how the former inmate believes it's truly impossible to kill yourself there. So the following account is from a former inmate of the Metropolitan Correction Center in Lower Manhattan, where Jeffrey Epstein was found unresponsive Saturday and declared dead at a hospital of an apparent suicide. There's no way that man could have killed himself. I've done too much time in those units, and it's an impossibility. Between the floor and the ceiling is like 8 or 9 feet. There's no way for you to connect to anything. You have sheets, but they're paper level, not strong enough. He was 200 pounds. It would never happen. When you're on suicide watch, they put you in this white smock straitjacket. They know a person cannot be injurious to themselves. The clothing they give you is a jump-in uniform. Everything is a dark brown color. Could he have done it from the bed? No, sir. There's a steel frame, but you can't move it. There's no light fixture. There's no bars. They don't give you enough in there that you could successfully create an instrument of death. You want to write a letter? They give you rubber pens. And maybe once a week a piece of paper, nothing hard or made of metal. So to go along with that, I guess the last suicide at this facility was in 1998. So it's been 20 years since the last suicide there. So now to get into the weird anomalies around the night of Epstein's murder. First off, like I already said, his cellmate was transferred out literally on the eve of his death. So the night before he killed himself, his cellmate was transferred out. Could that be that he saw an opportunity, a window of opportunity, and he's like, I don't have a cellmate, I'm gonna do it tonight? Maybe. And along with that, I guess the prison guards who were supposed to be checking on him didn't make a single round all night. And when I first read that, I assumed that they were in on it. Like I just assumed, okay, so they didn't check on him. They probably had something to do with it. Before I get into that, I'm gonna try this. So this is called the kitchen sink. I do remember the name of it because it's basically just like an amalgamation of random shit. Like it has M&Ms, potato chips, pretzels, and then something else on the inside maybe. I don't know, but I'm excited. You can actually taste the pretzels. Like you can really taste them. I was worried that it would be like drowned out by the brownie part, but you can totally taste them. I would say my favorite, or like in order, my favorite's this one. I forget the name of it, but like I said, I'll put it in the description. My second favorite, the kitchen sink, the Oreo one, and then the kitchen sink, and then this one. Surprisingly, this one's not my favorite, even though I really thought it would be. I feel like because it's the driest, like it doesn't have the same gooiness that the other ones do, which I just love. So I feel like that's why I don't like it as much. So yeah, like I said, I thought that the guards might be in on it, but recently, I guess they were actually charged for falsifying records because surveillance footage shows that they were asleep at their desks and online shopping and just doing other things when they should have been making their rounds. And so they signed off on, I think they have to check every 30 minutes. They were supposed to check on the inmates. And so they signed off that they had, but in reality they hadn't. And so they found Epstein in his cell the next morning when I think they went to bring him breakfast. And so to me, the fact that they're now being charged with falsifying records, I would just think that if they were part of a cover-up of the murder of Epstein, I would think that they would have been more protected. Like I just can imagine participating in a cover-up of a murder and then actually in some way going down for it, like how they could face like 30 years in jail for falsifying records and like saying that they were making their rounds and they didn't. So to me, if I was facing 30 years in prison, for sure, snitch. I'd be like, hold on a second. Y'all got this messed up. The reason why I wasn't checking is because I was contacted by Bill Clinton. No. But seriously, like I would snitch. I'd be like, this isn't cool. Like I'm not going down, especially because one of them is like a single father of 3. So he has his kids to think about, you know, like he doesn't want to be in prison for 30 years. And so what I think would be more plausible is that, because I guess both guards were working overtime. One was on his 5th straight shift of overtime, and then the other was on mandatory overtime that had been ordered by management. And so they were both very tired, both very overworked. And so to me, what would make the most sense is if someone wanted to be secretive about killing Epstein or sneaking someone into the prison to kill Epstein. I don't even know like what people do when they're trying to kill someone or take someone out. I don't know. But it would make the most sense to me that they would do it on a night where the guards were sleeping. Like, it showed that they were asleep for like 2 hours at one point. That's more than enough time to kill somebody. To me, that's what makes more sense, is that the guards really weren't in on it. They were just a victim of circumstance because they were so overworked. And then another piece of information that a lot of people are talking about that is super sketchy. So you know how I said that there was surveillance footage of the guards sleeping? Would you look at that? Those cameras were working, but I guess the only 2 cameras that had a line of sight at the walkway leading up to Jeffrey Epstein's cell or viewing his cell malfunctioned that night. Would you imagine that? No footage of anything. The thing to me too is that would just be such a weird coincidence if Epstein really had committed suicide and the cameras malfunctioned on that night. That's such a weird coincidence. And I don't believe in coincidences like that. Both cameras. Why couldn't it have just been one? Like, if you could prove that no one entered his cell, then you know he actually did commit suicide. Like, nope, that doesn't even make any sense. And then like I mentioned earlier, so you know how I said that there was a forensic pathologist who thinks that the autopsy actually points to homicide, not suicide? Well, so I guess also Epstein's family doesn't believe that he committed suicide because they hired this famous forensic pathologist his name's Michael Baden, Dr. Michael Baden, and he was actually on the JFK murder case. He was on the O.J. Simpson trial. He has been a part of so many things that I'm forgetting. But if he is trusted enough to be hired to give his opinion in those situations, why wouldn't you trust his opinion on this? You know, like, it's not like he has anything to gain by lying and saying that he thinks it's a homicide when it's not. But basically he concluded that because of the way the bones in the neck were broken, that he believes that it's more indicative of a homicide than a suicide, which is crazy. Like, crazy. So he said, I've not seen in 50 years where that occurred in a suicidal hanging case. And then I looked up more facts on, because I guess the hyoid bone in his neck was broken. And so I looked up more facts on the hyoid bone in hanging cases. And I guess hyoid bone breaks are more common when someone's strangled and not hang themselves, just because the weight of the rope pulling you up isn't, like, it doesn't break that bone as much. It's more of like a crushing in motion. A 2010 study found broken hyoids in 1/4 of cases of hangings. But then a larger study that was conducted from 2010 to 2016 found hyoid damage in just 16 of 264 cases of hangings. That's only 6% of hanging cases that result in a hyoid bone fracture, which is what Jeffrey Epstein had. So the pathologist, just because of that reason, and then the cartilage that was broken in his neck, believes that it was a homicide. So that's pretty much all the information on like the creepy circumstances surrounding Jeffrey Epstein's suicide. But then one of the most interesting parts to me about this story is the way the media has handled this story. There was leaked footage from an ABC News reporter named Amy Robach, who was talking on a hot mic, so she didn't know that the camera was still rolling. And she was talking about how in 2015, she had wanted to break the story about Epstein, and she had brought it to ABC and her superiors, I guess. So this is all her talk. I'll put the footage in so you can see it, so you can see exactly what she says. But she's talking about how her superiors basically shut her down. They said that nobody knows who Jeffrey Epstein is, so that it's not an important story, which that's complete BS, because in this story, so she, you know how I mentioned the Virginia Roberts girl who had accused Prince Andrew of molesting her, basically? Well, that was who Amy Robach had the interview with. So she said that Virginia even had pictures, and that, quote, what Virginia had was unreal. So, okay, I don't care that no one knows who Jeffrey Epstein is. Everyone knows who Prince Andrew is. And if Prince Andrew is connected to a pedophile, isn't that something that you think the United States people should know? Apparently not. So once that footage was released, ABC released this statement about how the story didn't reach their editorial standards, which, once again, how? If there's photos and a victim is coming forward, that's standards right there. But the reason why they didn't want to go forward with the story is because they wanted to be able to get an interview with Will and Kate. So basically, they were just looking out for themselves so that they could preserve their own relationships with the rich and powerful.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton, we had everything.
And it just makes me so sick to my stomach and so mad, because intentionally squashing stories to preserve your relationship with rich and powerful people is not free press. That's not ethical journalism. And the fact that they're not even facing that much scrutiny about it because the rest of the media is not talking about it pisses me off even more. Name a single prominent news network that you've seen that's called out ABC for squashing that story. Oh wait, I haven't seen a single one. I mean, in general, it was so hard for me to research this story because I feel like every single reputable source that you would think, they were taking the side of, oh, these conspiracies are crazy. Make sure you have all your facts before you assume all these conspiracies. Like, every single one was biased in favor of the official story released about Jeffrey Epstein. Do your job and investigate it. Like, don't just write a biased, one-sided piece with your opinion about how you think that people are jumping to conclusions. Give me proof. Like, none of this information that I gave you guys today, I found none of it in the American news media, mainstream media. Anyway, that's pretty much all I have to say about Epstein that I can think of. I feel like I probably forgot a lot of stuff, but I gotta just kind of talk off the top of my head, so I think I covered all the main points, which is good. So, anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this conspiracy video. I know I said in a recent Q&A that I wouldn't be able to do them very often, which is true. I just had time this week actually to research one, and I've been really itching to do one because it's been so long since I've done one, and I really enjoy researching them. So I thought I would research one this week for you guys. I don't know when my next one will be. Hopefully soon, but I don't want to promise anything. So I hope you guys enjoyed this one in the meantime. And yeah, I will just see you in my next video.